he said happy birthday.
I did, I heard.
And Cliff even emailed me saying he wasn't, he was under the weather.
Yeah, he's
Said,
sick.
"I was
He's
not."
Oh, so you can use your email?
No, he was emailing me that it's happy birthday.
Oh,
It's your birthday?
Yeah.
see, we're not allowed to email any of them. I found out that I'm blocked too.
I don't know.
And I didn't realize I was harassing anybody.
Sometimes we don't know till we're called out on.
Well, you know something, I think that under the color of law statute that I applied, and that I am part of a group of people that does FOI requests in order to gain access to information, and that I'm being discriminated against because I'm not allowed to submit FOI requests by use of a public email account. So therefore, I'm submitting a complaint to the UCLA.
That wasn't you this time. What's that?
Yeah.
That's it.
Seven. Still got 5 minutes.
UCLA, the basketball.
Yeah, go ahead and do that, because what we'll do is, we'll repair that, what we've done in the past, is, we'll go and get a quote, and then we'll log in and check that, repair it done. Yeah, okay, all right, back. I'm just gonna text you, because I was hoping to get these minutes out of the way tonight.
You're getting moldy.
So we are in a full,
Yeah,
a full form here. Full form.
Mike, I like the mug. The mug.
Unless it's booze.
No, it's coffee, or tea, actually.
You guys doing film? About time you guys did a little facelift over there. Darlene's probably rolling around in his grave.
Oh, as soon as we change the doors, it's like fire. He has fought for doors, and that's getting old for probably, I started in 2004, and he was complaining about doors and film before that.
Yeah. So what for dinner before we start out?
Don't forget to push the button on.
I know, otherwise I'll get holler at him.
I want you to tonight.
Or Ricky will holler at me.
I don't holler.
I'll put it right in front of Ricky.
Where there's a holler,
No, I don't even give me that speeding ticket when I was 16.
you deserve that.
I did not. What was this?
What, the yelling or the ticket?
I was innocent. Yes. Suppose you don't remember that.
No, I don't.
That's why he doesn't talk to you.
I handed out so many, I can't.
Okay, I have 6 o'clock. Hold on.
Should be an out of run.
I think so. At 6 o'clock, I call this meeting to order, and first order of business, pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is public input. Mr. Bradley.
I have a couple of quick things that I want to run over. The first one is that my email is blocked by the chief, and I don't understand why. I've done nothing to harass the gentleman. I filed a couple of FOI requests, but that is a protected right under the law. According to the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, that's a protected right under equal protection of the law, and it delegates me as a group. I am a group of people that attempts to gain access to information that is not otherwise available to us without doing an FOI request. And in doing so, by filing FOI request, I have been blocked by the chief. There's no other reason why he could have blocked me, because I've never had any contact with him other than that. The other thing is that apparently tonight there's gonna be discussion about contracts. The last contract that was given out by Mr. Brace, it was a blanket contract of 5 years where the raises went in retroactively on the anniversary date. And I want to point out to you, if you take a look at the contract states that the chief's performance will be evaluated on a yearly basis. So how can a raise go into effect retroactively without the board first voting as to whether or not the person deserves a raise? That is one of the things that I think needs to be looked at. Already, there's violations of the contract in that he lives outside of the radius that was allowed. And he had gotten a grandfather for his previous address. He doesn't have a grandfather clause for this current address. Recently, or actually a few months ago, I had attempted to file a complaint at the Windsor Locks Police Department, and I met your new police officer, Todd, however you say his last name. And I was met by a threat that if I tried to proceed with my complaint, that he would arrest me as well. Having experience with that, I knew exactly what he's trying to do. It's a threat. It's a lazy cop's way out. If I gotta do work in order to investigate this, I'm gonna arrest you too. I find out that they got a video surveillance system up at the location where it happened. Supposedly, he turns around, he says he's gonna get the video surveillance system, but he's going on midnights, so we can't get it for the next 2 weeks. When he comes back from his being on midnights, he contacts me and says that for some reason, the video system failed, and now he can't get the video system or the video record showing what actually happened. He turns around and he tells me that he wants to give me an infraction for creating a public disturbance. And I told him, I'm not gonna take your ticket. Eventually, a couple of days later, he called me up on a Saturday morning. I had gotten woken up out of sleep, and I turned around and I told him, yeah, I'll be right in. And then it dawned on me, what am I doing? I'm not going in there to get a ticket. I had already been to the prosecutor's office and I told them what was going on. I told them about what this officer was trying to do to me, and I was told by the state's attorney's office that creating a public disturbance is an on-site violation only. He cannot give me a ticket 2 weeks later. And he said that the cop needs to do a warrant. So I told them, I called them back. I said, if you want to arrest me, do it the right way. Get a warrant.
One more minute, Mike.
I get a call back from Coolis. Turns around and says, well, won't you come in and take the ticket? I said, no. So I turn around and I ask for a copy of the report. They won't give it to me. I've done an FOI request. They won't give me the report. They did an arrest warrant application, but they won't tell me what's in it. And the officer that did the investigation did a shabby investigation because I posted about it on Facebook, and I got a call from a manager of a heating system over there that was threatened by the same person for the same reason, just for parking in that lot. So that officer did a crappy job. And last but not least, the districts. You gotta make these officers work their districts because you got whacked down in the Fernwood Drive area. I'm gonna be honest with you. Everybody knows that District 5 can get boring. And you go up to 75 because that's where the action is. The thing is that the District 5 car's gotta do his job down in District 5, and he's gotta go from there. You can't have everybody up on 75 because everybody else in town deserves the same privileges and protections under the law that everybody else gets.
Okay, Mike, time. Next, Mr. Russo.
Dave Russo, 407 Elmwood Drive. May I approach the bench? I have a letter which I hope that possibly be distributed to the members of the commission.
I think we have it.
You do.
Is it this one?
Dated 1/15/19?
The request to the chief
I have
for
it.
my photographic ID? Well, okay, so everybody has a copy of that.
Yes.
Okay, so let's review that. You know, apparently, the chief has issued photographic IDs to Dan Squires, to Rick Rochelle, to all the people that he had retired in 2012. My letter states 25 years of service. I think I have an equal right to have photographic ID, whether Commissioner Shelley or anybody else agrees with that. There's been a conspiracy among certain people around here to deny me access to bear arms, okay? I think it's time that this whole thing come full circle. I've appeared here many times over the years. All I want is fairness from this board. And I'm requesting that you instruct the chief of police to issue me that photographic ID so that if I choose, that I can qualify under LEOSA to bear arms. And yes, the chief did do some Mickey Mouse stuff with rejecting my firearms permit application, and I'd be happy to revisit that in a court of law when you take cases that complaints that I've been totally vindicated of, and you submit those as evidence of my poor character, where you go back into my personnel file, you go into my medical records without any cause, and you decide you're gonna reject my pistol permit application. Again, this board job is oversight, and all I want is fairness. That's all I'm asking for, is fairness. You've had an opportunity to see me and evaluate me. If I appear like somebody who's gonna go off the wall and jump out of trees, you should know that. I have never raised my voice in anger. I've never threatened anybody. I do want a right to protect myself, my family, and this country. So again, I'm gonna request that the police commission instruct the chief, or I'm gonna have to, again, same issue. It's fairness. It's fairness. If everybody else has their photographic ID, why should I not have my photographic ID? 25 years on the street, my wife, my family, as well as yours, had to deal with the fact that I'm out on the street. I think it's only fair that I be issued my photographic ID. Moving on, I filed a complaint against the chief regarding my misconduct complaint. That complaint still stands. I expect the Board of Police Commissioners to review and evaluate that. I also said that I didn't accept Cherniak's report on my misconduct complaint. I'm going to request that the full commission, because you have the audio CD, you have everything that I gave to the chief. I want the commission to do a complete and independent evaluation of Cherniak's report. That's what I'm asking. Now, outside of that, I mean, yeah, I can go to the state police, I can go to other jurisdictions and other venues. Again, as I mentioned, and I'll leave it off the record, Dan, if you read that whole thing, his report went further than just an evaluation of what transpired between myself and those two officers. And if we want to start pulling dirt, maybe I'll talk about tuna fish toes. Maybe I'll talk about other things. So.
All set?
Well, I don't know, I thought you were cutting me off. I'd like to have the police commission list email addresses for each police commissioner. So I think it's only right that if a citizen wants to talk to the police commission, there should be more than one address than going through you. I don't really trust that you pass along the information to the rest of the commission in a timely fashion.
All right, I'm gonna cut you off there.
Okay, good ending point.
Okay, next thing is the approval of minutes. Now that we have a full board here, September 12th. So that would be James Sapansky, Ricky, Mike F., and Mike Perry voting on that. Because the rest of us are, I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here.
Awesome.
So is there a motion to accept?
Motion.
Go ahead.
Make a motion to accept the September 12th minutes.
Ricky, second.
I'll second it.
Jimmy? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 2 abstentions. Thank you. Finally, we can put those away.
Yeah, they were getting older.
Okay, the next one is January 9th, and Michael, you were absent from that one, Mr. Perry. Is there a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
Jim, is there a second?
Second.
Ricky, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One abstention. Thank you. Okay, next is chief's reports.
Hey, Commissioners, first item in there is the current budget update. So far, we can't make that any bigger. So we're looking good within the current budget. Any kind of questions specific to certain lines? I'll address if you have any questions.
I do.
Okay.
On the one that were negative 4.11%, is that dispatch overtime?
That is dispatch overtime, yes. Historically, we've been over on that line,
Yeah.
and then we cover it with the salary line because there's private, part-time money in there.
Okay.
So, and also we did have a complication where the animal control salary was being taken out of the wrong line, so that's being adjusted in finance. Just one other item I want to bring up to date on. You know, we're going through the process. We have one opening. We haven't done a background on a potential new hire. It's at the beginning stages, but I just want, we had talked about different options, but this is a young officer, 2 years out of the academy, and everything looks very positive, but I can't really put a name on or anything like that because a lot of things can happen in the background. Looks positive, and I hope that comes forward within the next month and a half to the board. The next item will be the proposed budget. Obviously, the way the budget's format's changed with the new system. If you went through it, you probably noticed a few of the old lines have been merged into one, and we're slowly working our way through that. We changed the narrative packet slightly, and basically, you go through each line when I listed on the pages behind. Basically, there's not many things being increased. We're holding the line on most things. Chairman, if you'd like to go through each line or just the lines that have changes, I don't know.
Why don't we go through the changes first, and then if any commissioner has a question on any existing line, I think we can go back with that,
Okay.
if that works.
Okay, the first, if you go to page 2 on the narrative, the top part, emergency medical dispatch, has increased to $25,736. That's an increase of $86. That increase is something we contract through CMed, North Central Connecticut Emergency Medical Services, and they provide all the medical pre-arrival instructions on 911 calls, medical calls. So that's a requirement from the state, and that's a yearly function.
Certainly not questioning the increase, but
Yep.
just the dollar amount. I mean, did they have any $86? Just seems like a.
They have a formula per capita for our population, and I think it went up a couple cents per person, and that's how it goes, so.
Okay.
That's the Christmas party budget.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
86
Yep.
bucks.
A little further down the line, vehicle repair, increase of $3,440. The fleet is getting older. We're running into more repairs the last 2 years. The last 2 years, we've been over budget. So this is to bring it back in line. This is actually the exact amount of money that we had in the repair budget 5 years ago. So when we initially bought the first new vehicles, those were on warranty. Obviously, our costs go down. Most of, probably 80% of the cars or 90% are off warranty, so our costs are going up. That's just to bring it, like I said, back to where we were 5 years ago. The next line, telecommunications, increased by $1,200. That increase is dictated by the captain's employment contract for cell phone reimbursement, $1,200 a year. Next two lines, we actually went down slightly in postage and printing, just because we're mailing less and posting, and having to print less forms with the computer side. So. On the next page, there's no increase in any of those items. An increase in salary in the administration, that's the center of the page, that's the increase in there. The next line is sworn officers increase of $25,000. And basically what the Board of Finance did last year, we had an opening that was being filled, and we had a couple months of a gap there. So at the very end of the budget, or just before implementing the budget, they reduced it that time. So now we're gonna be up to full strength, so we have to bring it back to the fully funded positions. Police overtime, we're holding steady again. We've been doing that each year, even though the salaries are going up, so we're doing our best to control overtime. The major change, if you read the narrative in the back, is in the dispatcher salary line. It shows an increase of $50,000, and that's a request for an additional fifth dispatcher, additional position. Right now, we have 4 dispatchers, 4 full-time, and this would give us 5 full-time positions. We're really behind the times in the workload in dispatch. If you read that narrative, it gives you kind of a brief background. We're really required, the days are gone or are extremely numbered where we can put an officer in there with the certifications. Everything's computer-based now, so an officer just can't hop on the desk and dispatch and take 911 calls. They gotta log into the state system now with a individual password and ID. So that's changing. And the amount of work our dispatchers do is really high. So between dispatching fire, EMS, police, 911 calls, admin calls, walk-ins, they're overworked. We're starting to see the state is tracking times of answering 911 calls, so we're seeing an increase in that time. And really what the long-term plan would be is to bring on a 5th and hopefully a 6th dispatcher in the following year's budget, and that would give us 2 dispatchers on our peak times, 3 to 11. That would really bring us up to where communities our size and call volume are already at. The other problem we have with 4 dispatchers is that replacing, if you have 1 or 2 out, 50% of your workforce is gone. Then we're mandated to put officers in there if we can at time and a half rate, which is much higher. So, and also in their work schedule, they work a 4 and 2 schedule, leaves 2 opening shifts, midnight shifts a week. So having that 5th dispatcher would plug up those 2 holes too. So one of my thoughts, and I talked to the chairman a little bit about this, is the cost would be $50,000 for a new dispatcher. When I go to present the budget next Tuesday, I think a compromise or an attempt to get this passed with as little pain as possible. We have $37,000, I believe, in the salary line, which is earmarked for part-time people. We've had nothing but problems getting part-time people to stay and to actually work shifts. So that's kind of a cushion in that line. And what I'd like to do is take half of that and earmark it towards the full-time salary. So I think we can get into like the high 30s for a brand new position. So I think that's a good bang for the buck. So any questions from your perspective after reading?
Yeah, wanna go?
Yeah, just on the cover page, I think we should annotate Rick's position as being secretary and give him credit for my position on the cover sheet.
Where's that?
Thanks a lot.
On the cover sheet.
Oh, okay, the cover sheet.
Rochelle as a secretary.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's give him credit for that.
That's the same as last year, so I didn't look at it.
The other thing, it must take a special type of person to be a dispatcher, to be able to juggle all these activities and not fall apart.
It's a tough job, because you're getting it from every, you can imagine a major accident, a domestic going on, you got officers wanting information, you got 911 calls.
Yeah.
You have firemen wanting information, it's really probably the most demanding job.
Yeah, I can see it being.
So, I always tell people, back in the day when I started, we were mandated to go into dispatch, and it's the only place where I've gotten written up in my career, so, because there's just so much information coming at you.
Go ahead, Rick.
My concern is, I don't wanna get stuck into a minimum manpower type situation. So, on that shift, if we have 2 on and 1 books off, for whatever reason, there's nothing in there that has to be
There's
filled.
nothing in the contract mandating anything right now, so, I would say we're not held to that, you know.
That's a good question,
Yeah.
Ricky, and we wanna make sure that, isn't the dispatcher contracts coming up as well?
It's coming up in June, in July.
So-
So it's something to bring up.
Well, we're definitely gonna address it, as you know they will.
Yes. Well, right now, there's no language requiring us, so.
Well, the problem is, if you only one, how would you do that? It would be
Yeah, you
pretty
could.
difficult,
Right.
you know, it's not like
So
patrol.
it'd really be their,
It's overstaffed.
it would be their
Yeah.
attempt to probably come in and say,
I see
you know,
what
we
you're
want a
saying.
minimum manning, but, I mean, we wouldn't agree to that. But then we could really take a look at where the peak times are and the need, but the need is definitely there. And that's something we've been talking about. I mean, I talked to the Board of Finance probably the last 3 years, kind of saying, this is coming. You know, we kind of tried to update some things in the PD first, get a little bit more manpower, a little bit more programs, and so it shouldn't come as a surprise. I mean, I know it's a new position, but I think we can do it fairly cheap. And that's really, let me see.
That was it.
So for the increases,
After that,
we've been pretty bare bones each year, so we've been, outside of the positions where we increased, we've been holding, there's no other increases, so. I think we were looking at, with a new position, a 2.4% increase. We bring that down by, you know, $15,000 on the salary, it'll even go below that, so. And it will save some overtime in dispatch too, so, filling those 2 positions in the evening, so.
Are you looking for commission support at the meeting, or just to be in attendance?
It's always very helpful, yes,
Okay.
yeah. I'm sure, I believe the chairman's gonna be there, but.
Yeah, I was there last couple of years.
Last couple of years,
It's on my
yeah.
calendar at home, so.
I may not be, so I, still have maybe, so I'll definitely,
Yeah.
because about my theory, I see this,
Yeah, yeah, any support.
I should be there, but.
Really appreciated.
So I just have one question regarding police, well, actually, probably a couple, but, police overtime.
Yep.
We're overstaffed, but we're maintaining that 310,000 net overtime. Limit.
Well, we've been over and overtime for the past 4 years, so we're slowly bringing it down. I mean, 310 is just not a realistic number that we've been, that's really a 7-year-old number that we've been working with, so. We're doing everything we can, because obviously the salaries have increased dramatically in 6-7 years.
No, I understand that, but I mean, the reason for overstaffing was to reduce it. That was the main, reason for the overstaffing that was presented years ago when we went to the overstaff. So I would think that with the overstaffing of the shifts, that there would be some sort of reduction in that overtime amount.
Well, I think at the last Board of Finance, when we went for the contract, for the budget, what was stated was that if we didn't increase, we'd have to increase the overtime to like 375, because it was not feasible to work for 350. So we're coming down to try to make that a legitimate 310.
You know, some of that's
So-
dependent on what's going on. I mean,
No,
Right.
I understand
Yeah.
Yeah.
that, but
It's hard to pinpoint exactly what that number's gonna
Yeah,
be.
we've been holding steady at like 360, I think 365, over the past few years. We were as high as 450 when I first got here. So we've been bringing it down while salaries are going up, so. And then we have things, we have current investigations, things like the murder investigation going on. We're tracking all the overtime. That's still ongoing. Those are significant numbers, so we're trying to cut. The nice thing, what we're doing is it does enable us having the manpower to not fill all positions, obviously. If we're overstaffed and somebody calls out sick, we don't have to backfill it, where we were before, so.
The technology and IT service, Mike Balfour was doing that before, now we have another,
Yeah, we have our vendor that is the Accucom, which is the vendor for the computer
Yeah.
system.
And that's coming
They are
out.
filling in that, and
is that where it comes out of?
it comes out of there,
Okay.
yes. So they're basically taking his place. Just as a side note, that was a big loss for us, having somebody like that in-house, who knows the guys, the system and that. So we're still working through that. We should be able to maintain that same cost, but we're not getting the same level of service, obviously, as we did with Mike. We need a new Mike Balfour. We're on the search.
He ain't coming back.
No, he's not.
He still answers all
It
my
was
calls.
68 and sunny there yesterday. He's not
I
coming back.
don't blame him.
Yeah, it was like at 7 o'clock in the evening.
But Florida's going into the ocean pretty quick.
I don't think any of us will be alive by the time that happens.
Any other questions of the chief? None, Jim, Mike, good? Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah.
And just on that dispatcher issue, I tried to put in we're kind of, if you look at other departments, very similar. East Windsor and Cromwell are very similar to us. Call volume, types of calls, and they're all currently at 6 full-time dispatchers already, and they don't even handle EMS or fire, so. It's long overdue is what I'm saying.
Well, the big one too for me is East Windsor got sick.
And it's, it's a liability, it's a concern liability-wise for me, not only for our citizens, the town, also our officers, our firemen out there, because they just can't physically handle everything once in a major call.
Me
So,
too.
well,
That's above our pay grade, I think.
that'll be coming down the road, but not soon enough.
How do these towns measure population-wise?
Very close,
Very close,
Yeah.
12 and a half?
Yeah.
13, 14?
yeah, yep.
Okay.
Okay, any other business, chief, here?
Under old business, no, nothing under that, so
I got something on old business, if I may.
I don't think we got there yet, so.
We're there now.
Ricky had mentioned last meeting and the meeting before, some citizens were complaining about people running a stop sign on
West
West End
Yeah.
Grove.
I have that on my notes, it's not
Okay.
on there, but
I'm sorry.
we did about 25 patrols over there and issued about 20 infractions, so,
Oh, really?
yeah, so,
So it was
that'll be
real.
ongoing.
None
Well,
of
that's
you, none
good.
of you were one of
No,
them
I
getting a
mean-
ticket.
Yeah,
I didn't do that one.
I knew what you meant. It's working. I'll even stick up for you on that one. I knew what you meant.
and we've been talking with the selectmen, I guess the plan they're looking at is widening the road and the sidewalk on the side, which will probably cause more issues speeding,
Where are you
Yeah,
gonna take
probably
that?
will.
so.
Speed bumps.
Don't go there, I'm still paying for
Yeah.
Daisy Park.
Public Works doesn't like speed bumps, so.
My God,
I stopped going there in the summertime.
I know.
I gotta change my whole travel plan. I'm thinking of every time I go
I
by there.
do, I got hammered. That wasn't even my idea, I just backed it.
Any
Seemed like a
other,
great idea at the time.
any other old business? Any new business to come before the commission? Okay, the next is, executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to go in executive session.
I'll make a motion that we go in executive session to discuss personnel contracts. I assume we're inviting the chief to this
For the first half,
for
yes.
the first half.
Yes.